We should talk about whose side we're on, by the way. Before we get into this, I want to say this. When I was in law education in high school, my teacher had one rule. You have to pick one side. You can't say, I like both sides, I like elements of both sides, so I can't. You have to pick a side and defend it. Now, it's okay to switch sides if you have new information that you're like, oh, actually, now I kind of see. But you can't say that you like points on both sides. You have to defend one of them and not defend the other. So that's what we'll do.
But I wanted to present the points I liked on both sides.
Nope, you cannot do that. You have to pick one side.
I don't know. And I won't reference it to this because we've talked about the good points of both sides before.
Yeah,
and I believe there are. But I feel like that can be said about just about any political or social issue that comes up.
And you have to pick one.
Yeah, you have to end up landing on one side or the other. And so I still end up on Captain America's side when it comes to this one. Honestly, we've got, I get it that these, metahumans or whatever, these superheroes need to be, there needs to be some sort of control put in place, but ultimately that's up for them to decide, which, sounds crazy a little bit because what? We can't control them, but we kind of can't. They're superheroes. They can kind of do whatever they want. The fact that they don't just go...
That's the scary thing, Bryce. That's the problem.
Because you are not in power, you have to implement some sort of protection for yourself.
No, this is what... All right, so obviously I'm Team Iron Man. Here's the thing, all right? Cap's big argument. I walked out of... The first time I saw the movie, I walked out of it going, you know what? I am Team Cap. Because he said a really kind of convincing line that said, the UN would be who controls where the Avengers would go. And Cap said, well, the UN is run by people. People have agendas change. And I said,
yep,
dude, that's really great. Hey, guess what? The Avengers are also people with agendas, and their agendas change. So it's the exact same thing. It's so arrogant for Captain America to assume that he knows best, that he knows what's best for the entire world. That is so arrogant. So that's why I'm Team Iron Man.
I'm still squarely Team Cap because for what I feel was a pragmatic reason, very, very logical, I guess you could call it. Here's the big deal, okay? So S.H.I.E.L.D. started the Avengers program. Nick Fury was kind of in charge of it, I guess you could say. And S.H.I.E.L.D. had their own agenda, but see, S.H.I.E.L.D. had the right reasons for doing what they did. Nick Fury was clearly a good person. And even they were infiltrated, so even S.H.I.E.L.D. was not above being infiltrated and corrupted. And now you want to put the Avengers under the control of the most corrupt organization on Earth, the government, itself. So why?
But here's the thing.
Sense.
Yes, it's absolutely possible and very probable that the government is corrupt in different ways outside of Hydra. But who's to say that same thing can't also happen to the Avengers?
Because when you remove the fact that they're independent, you remove the fact that they're superheroes. And if they're not superheroes, they're just an extension of the government. And suddenly it's George Orwell's 1984.
But if they claim to defend and fight for mankind, shouldn't they answer to the very mankind that they are wanting to protect?
Crap happened,
That's your response? Crap happens?
It's just, I just don't feel like they should be, sure, they should respond to the people and, what the people want. I'm not saying they can't be accountable. I'm kind of like Bryce. I see both sides of the equation. But at the end of the day, they need to remain independent or they lose the ability to act when it really needs to have something done,
we kind of see that a little bit with what's going on in the movie. And this is the reason why I land on Cap's side, is because in case of some sort of an emergency, or if some sort of intel comes up or becomes available, like what Captain America came across when he found out, Winter Soldier was set up. The guy that he was answering to was already doing that kind of stuff where he was like, nope, I don't want to listen to it. Iron Man, you can't go. And Iron
Yeah.
Man's like, no, but there's intel and it's important and we need to do the thing. And he's like, nope, nope, not allowed. And I was just like, that to me, which first of all, we see how well that worked because Cap, gosh dang it, because Iron Man, who was, on board for the Registration Act to begin with, then ends up defying the people that he signed on with because he thinks, there again, we get back to he thinks that he knows what's best, which in that case, I think most people would agree with him on that one. But I don't know. That's one of those things to me where it's like you say that, oh, well, anything can be corrupt. The Avengers can be corrupt. The government can be corrupt. But in that case, what would it matter then who they're answering to? Because no matter who they end up answering to, that group could still be corrupt. And now there's another layer of you have to go through these protocols before any response can be made. It's almost like, and this is going to sound super dumb because I'm going to make a business kind of example out of this, but it's almost like having a monopoly. If the UN has some sort of charter that makes all of the Avengers, all of the superheroes, all of the metahumans, whatever you want to call them, sign on with the UN's agenda, not their agenda, that sounds bad, signs on with the UN,
yes,
and has to listen to what they say and the directions they give them, then the UN effectively controls all of the metahumans. Whereas right now with the Avengers or with like the West Coast Avengers, or if we have separate groups of Avengers or, whatever other metahumans like the X-Men, all working kind of coherently together, it kind of, I guess it dilutes the power a little bit. Whereas the UN could take complete control with their entire force of metahumans when you don't have it all under one umbrella, where you have like separate groups like the X-Men or the Avengers or West Coast Avengers, whoever, then each group kind of takes on its own. It's like in a business, businesses aren't allowed to have monopolies.
Yeah.
There's almost like a competition base. And I feel like that in and of itself would encourage better handling of situations than everybody being like, okay, here are the rules, you have to play by them now. Whereas if all of the individual groups of heroes were like, okay, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here, we need to work together on this to find a better solution, instead of a governing body stepping in and saying, okay, here are the rules and you guys are going to listen to them.
I'm going to bring up 2 points here. Number one, somebody out there is screaming that we keep using the term metahumans, and this is a Marvel universe, not the DC universe. Number two, it's fine. I'm going to continue to do it because it's easier. The other thing I'll bring up is I would avoid the term monopoly and instead use the term public utility, because it would be the difference between there's a big push right now to make the internet a public utility instead of these different companies who aren't competing with each other at all. They're basically trying to create their own little monopolies inside of like a government and like in a loophole essentially. And that could almost be considered what is going on here with like Avengers and then West Coast Avengers, where you have like Comcast and another internet company. I don't know, but
another internet company.
Who cares?
AT&T.
Wow.
Yeah, sure.
Wide open West Room.
Yeah, so they divided up like the country with like, hey, we're only going to provide to these people. We're going to stay out of your territory. You can provide to these people. You stay out of our territory. And that's their way of trying to create a monopoly where they can control the price of like, all right, well, we're your only internet provider. So we, because no one else, we've made the deals with everyone, and we're going to say, hey, you are stuck with us. We get to control how much that we're going to charge you. It's no longer a competition. But if we make it into a public utility, then we can say that internet is something that everybody deserves access to. And that's what I think is what's going on here. Is not necessarily monopoly, but we're trying to make the Avengers into a global utility that can be used by anybody, not split them up into say, well, you're stuck with the West Coast Avengers because that's the people who are near you. We're going to say, hey, we're going to make sure we're going to combine all of our forces, and depending on what disaster is going on right now, we're going to send in the best people for the job, regardless of where you are in the world. You're not stuck with, whoever is just nearest to you. we're going to send in the best people for the job because we have all of them under our belt. It's not a necessarily, you could view it as a monopoly, but it's more of a just trying to do what's best for everybody. That's kind of how I see it.
That, I will say, the way you presented that, if they presented it that way in the movie, maybe
I win.
I would have been on Iron Man's
I win.
side. That's not what this podcast's about, though.
No, it's not. No, it's fine.
Shut up.
No, it's fine. I just like debating this.
Holy, here we go again, Batman.
I almost feel like Disney would have the guts to release a cooking with vision minigame on like your iPhone or something.
Oh man!
I
Oh my
feel like
gosh.
that's a
He's got the
thing
little
that would
callback
happen.
Dialogue in the game.
Disney, if you have not done
Job.
this yet, capitalize on this while you can.
Absolutely.